Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Roger's Real-Time Talk Show event. I'm Roger Hanson, your host, here with my co-host, Mark Edworthy. Also with us is Bob Dub, my brother Robert Hanson, and the mysterious V from Parts Unknown in the area of Roxford, Chicago, but unknown. We
And
don't.
we got to talk about that too, by the way.
Okay. So tonight is a pretty structured show. Now, here lately, we've been doing the debate thing, and in the last episode, we forewent that because it was causing the actual procedure for the debate was actually causing more problems than the topic. So I just went ahead and I got rid of that. We're going to do just a conversation back and forth with one another. But all I do ask is the thing about this show that is different than all of the other ones that I do is I ask that we try to keep it freaking, we keep it within the means of freaking dignity towards one another. We respect one another. There's no mudslinging. We respect everybody's opinion, no matter what it is. Allow them to finish talking. Don't butt in, stuff like that. Be courteous. You know what I'm saying? Don't do to them what you wouldn't want them to do to you. You know what I mean? And that's all.
Don't think we ever mudsling.
Well, I mean, we've come close. You guys got mad at me in one of them, and I had to
Okay.
I had to just completely.
Bob, remember when Bob was there? And
No, Bob didn't do it. Bob was actually the most respectful out of all of you guys.
well, no, that's what I'm saying. She got into that and told them to all calm down.
Oh no, that wasn't this show.
Did
Okay.
I? Is that
No.
what I do?
No, you
Oh,
weren't.
yeah,
You weren't
wow.
there. What happened was
Okay, I'm so glad.
it was me, me, Tan, and Mark. That they got really high hoppered on. Or they got
High on
pretty.
the horse.
Yeah, they and I stepped in because they were cross talking with one another, and they like Mark Edworthy turned into like the Green Hornet, and Tan
Oh,
turned
nice.
into his trusty sidekick, and I became the bad guy. I was like,
With a fairly motivated subject, I'd like to say.
it was.
Is that racist?
Okay, so what we will do is I'm gonna open it up with an opening comment, and I'm gonna read some of it. Um, Most of it I'm going to just speak about, and I'll open it up to everybody and let them discuss it. I wanted to go further from not from last week where we went, but from where we were talking about who shapes society. Okay, because here lately I've been thinking a lot about sociology, and let me make the point clear. I'm not talking about socialism. I'm talking about sociology. So before you guys like flip out or anything,
What's sociologically?
well,
What does that mean?
you just sit back and listen, and you'll figure it out, Mr. Hanson. So I'm not here to tell you sociology is evil. I've said that before, and I'm not here to tell you that sociology is socialism or that it's wrong. I'm just giving you the facts, okay? You guys give your take on it, but I just wanted to first say that, okay? So I'm here to basically ask what happens when we understand how human beings work, okay? Because that's what sociology is supposed to do, okay? It's supposed to study people, study families, study schools, religions, and institutions, okay? Now, they also want to study why people conform and why people rebel. They study how values spread, and the moment I say that, I have another question. If we understand how people are influenced, who gets to use that information? You know what I mean? I hear people always say sociology is neutral. Maybe a hammer is neutral too. You know what I mean? So that depends on who's holding it, basically. I don't buy this idea that schools are simply places for kids to learn math and grammar. Maybe that's what they should, maybe that's what they should be doing, but that isn't what they are. So
I was just going to say, and that is sort of questionable these days.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe cynical.
I also hear, that a lot too, when it comes to the school systems, because basically what I'm seeing is kids learn in school how to behave. They learn how to stand in line, how to obey authority. They learn how to interact with groups, what opinions are acceptable and what opinions are dangerous and unacceptable. So
according to some people,
right.
Yeah.
Is it just me hearing that, or can anybody else hear that?
I tried to get Robert to stop, but it's his dog. He's sitting down there under him and scratching the floor. It's annoying, and
I gotta turn my volume down because it's breaking my ears.
he's just sitting there. So, I mean, what history matters is the thing, and what history doesn't matter. You don't just like learn algebra, you learn society. No, maybe that's necessary. Maybe civilization couldn't survive without it. I don't know. But let's at least admit what's happening, because once you admit that, you have to ask who decides that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say you learn society from a perspective, not necessarily a good perspective, not necessarily a bad perspective, depending on nuance.
Well, the thing of it is when it comes to sociology, and this is really where it gets interesting. You got a lot of these different thinkers, okay, and some of these thinkers, they argued like sociology shapes the individual. Some said that institutions reproduce power. Then you also had some that said religions reinforce hierarchies. I've also heard people say that education reinforces ideology. I've also heard like language shapes thought. So to me, those are pretty powerful ideas, and they spread everywhere. You know what I mean? And you find that, I mentioned it in other episodes. You find that usually in the universities or the media. Politics is even saying it. Well, you're big on the whole corporate thing, Mark. That's even in corporate training.
Indeed. Yeah. So I was just thinking of I was trying to remember a specific line from Orwell's 1984, but newspeak.
Mm-hmm. And then,
corporate speak as well. Yeah.
Well, like schools and these social movements as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're talking too, like it's the way you phrase. When you phrase it a certain way, you can have people pay attention to better understand it, and where it works for you, the way you want it to go too.
Yeah, but also if you phrase things in a certain way, you can push people into specific ways of thinking that may not be what do you say making it easier for them to think the meaning, the purpose of what is being spoken. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but it's like that one serial killer, the one that he said that he heard that dog call him to kill.
Well,
Look at how that went. No, it's the thought.
that doesn't have anything to do with socialism. He was
Well,
mentally ill, and
Well-
I mean, I don't know for sure if he was actually the son of Sam was actually, you know, making it up or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? But the thing of it is the man was mentally ill, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to sociology too. And before somebody says that like sociology isn't socialism, or I just want to say, to hold on and not so fast on that, because I do understand that not everybody who studied institutions were socialist, and not everybody who studied power wanted a revolution. Okay, but some did. You know what I mean? There were Marxists and there were neo-Marxists, and that brings you to what we call today critical theory members of the Frankfurt School. You know what I mean? And I think that's really where I'm trying to get to when it comes to all this stuff, because that's where it all culminates.
2 points. I was just going through a load of Orwell quotes here, and 2 ones that come up really relevant in shaping people's thinking through communication. First being in chapter 5 of 1984, quote saying, don't you see that the whole aim of newspeak is to narrow the range of faults? In the end, we will make fault crimes literally impossible, because there will be no words in which to express them. So the idea of removing words from the dictionary or from the lexicon to mold people, or to change words to mold people. The other one, really on the same concept, from the appendix in 1984, it was intended that when Newspeak had been adapted once and for all, and Old Speak was forgotten, a heretical fault, that is, a fault diverging from the principles of INSOC, the ruling party, should be literally unthinkable, at least so far as fault is dependent on words. So again, the removal of words, or the removal of the original meanings of those words, to mold or to shape people's thoughts into and therefore their attitudes and their movements, their
way of
to
thinking.
shape them to what you want them to do.
No, it's like when you get into stuff like that. I was talking about the Frankfurt School, okay, and critical theory. Now here in the United States, we refer to it as the New School, which is it's got a department pretty much in every university's campus all across America. Okay, and these are people who believe that if society shapes people, then society can be changed. Okay, and if society can be changed, then institutions become battlegrounds. So that those battlegrounds will pertain to stuff like schools, your churches, your families, the media, the way we talk, our culture. Now, when people who hear it, it makes them nervous. You know what I'm saying? Because then they start asking, at what point does like studying society become engineering society? You know, at what point does education become socialization? You know what I mean? At what point does socialization become indoctrination? And I don't think those are crazy questions at all.
The answer is when you have an agenda.
No.
Well, yeah, but to me, it's where, like, what happened over in Russia, where when that person came up with that idea of killing children because he was a sexual predator, but then he removed their eyes because
You're talking about
He-
Citizen X.
Yeah.
You've brought him up a couple times. I wanted
Yeah.
to point that out.
and he removed their eyes because he believed it was a thing in Russia. When you kill someone, they got the imprint of you as the person killed them.
No, I'm kind of curious about you and the way you're thinking is because, like, in this conversation, this makes the second serial killer you've mentioned.
I like it. I study serial killers.
Well, I mean, I'm like, how are you relating what we're discussing to serial killers? Because that
Well,
is odd.
You look at their process of way they do it, why they do it, what gets them going.
That has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, though, Robert, at all. I just don't.
See, can I just say,
Hold on.
sorry, I'm sorry. I think that Roger is talking about big groups of people, and you're talking about unusual people. So there's a little bit of a misunderstanding here.
Yeah, but when people goes to the point where it gradually grows from one a little bit here, and it gets too bigger and bigger, where their little ideals goes from one to the where it increases.
But you're literally talking about a serial killer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking about people trying to brainwash your children in school.
Well, but
all
you
educated people.
Like
can do it both.
Are you believing that, like, the Son of Sam and Citizen X were created
By the
by
environment.
by social engineering? Is that?
No, but by the
By their
environment.
environment. But
Well,
by
like
a
he
normal environment, Robert,
Yeah.
or by an abnormal environment?
Like in Russia, they didn't believe in what the way other countries. Each country handles certain things different, and you have to understand their environment. As everyone said, in colleges, they say you got to look at their environment, the way they live, and just get the better idea of what makes them tick.
Citizen X, first of all, was a teacher. Okay.
No,
Yeah, he was. He was actually a teacher. He was a
okay.
teacher, and the Son of Sam was a postal guy. He delivered mail, which I can understand why he would flip out. Most issues happen. A lot of issues like that happen with the mailman. They have
Actually, Robert has brought up an interesting point. Think of the sort of concepts of in the US. You've got issues with psychopaths going into schools. School kids turning into psychopaths because of the entire narrative about everybody's Nazi, everybody's far right. You've got to remove the far right, and the old concept of the back in 2014, 15, 16, the punch a Nazi concept, and these have been pushed by educationalists. They may not be stating that you've got to attack somebody who you deem to be far right, but they instill in the concepts that if you do not agree with our politics, then you are a danger to society, and therefore you have to be dealt with in one way or another.
Yeah.
So Robert's got a sort of point.
It is pretty interesting too that these people, one was a postal service person and one was a teacher. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, their minds were warped because of the freaking the jobs that they had. You know what I mean? Because even today here in the United States, the post office is very nervous. They're more nervous about their employees than they are about the people they deliver their mail to, because they flip out. They literally flip out.
They go postal.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Roger, have you ever been inside of a main post office?
No, and I do not want to.
I've been inside one once, and it's like going into a prison or a fortress. The doors are thick and steel. There are bars and bulletproof glass. You have to keep identifying yourself. And I'm thinking, who wants to steal junk mail? You know, who wants to steal my Sears catalog? It's not like they used to. In the old days, they would ship money in the mail. So yeah. But then I realized, Roger, you're probably right. It's probably their own employees they're worried about. I never saw so much ID.
Well, it's like the occult. They follow the same thing as what you guys are talking about too. For you to get people to get the groups to do what you want, how you want it, you have to do a massive amount of manipulation, knowing who each individual, their weaknesses, and their strengths, and you use that against them.
Well, you see, I mean, like with what you're saying though, you're talking about serial killers and you're saying the occult and stuff, and this is what people who I'm talking about want you to think about. They want you to talk about the occults and the crazy people and stuff, but see, people I'm talking about are the people who freaking who are starting to who are part of the government, okay? And these people,
friendly, well, not necessarily part of the government, because we're
Yeah.
talking about universities, colleges as well. So we're talking about your so-called friendly academic.
well, even the politicians, because every government, every state run, whatever you want to call it, they want loyal citizens, you know. Just like every religion, they always want believers. You know what I mean? Corporations want customers. Political movements want supporters. Everybody wants influence. Everyone. You know what I mean? And this is the stuff that people don't want to look at, because they want to look over here at these cult members, and they want to look over here at these serial killers and say, look how horrible these people are. But at the same time, your politicians, people who are in religious groups are doing it. You know, corporations are doing it. You know,
Well, arguably, the entire woke DEI movements are cults now. Mass cults, but still cults nevertheless.
I think they demonstrate
They're treated like religions in themselves.
there's
Yeah.
cult-like behavior, certainly.
Yeah, and they had their own thing about where they got it set up for law. Law cannot interfere in their expression, their ideals, the way they talk about things, their ideals. It's against we call it their rights, and that's the dangerous thing, because when a person can use them, knows how to manipulate the situation. But look at how many cults that went down because the leader decides to do one thing or another. And the same thing with people that have mental problems. I'm talking about like serial killers that seem to have no conscience.
Okay, I'm not sure if legal systems there, if the laws are set up to ignore certain things, but especially in evidence in the UK at the moment, there are some laws and demographics that are ignored, taking a blind eye to.
Well, I'm not saying.
Hold on. Let me put something in there too, okay? Because I started looking at government, and that's what opened another can of worms, okay? Now it's like here in the United States. The United States has the United States Constitution, and it's a very strange document, okay? Because first of all, it's short. It's remarkably short. Because somehow, from these few pages, we have the IRS, we've got Social Security, we've got Homeland Security, we've got the Federal Reserve, thousands of agencies, millions of pages of regulations. And that's when I started asking myself, did the founders imagine this? Did they expect agencies filled with unelected officials writing regulations that have the force of law? And you'll find some people who'll say, yeah, of course, but then that's modern society, and to me, I think modern society is too complex. Congress, to a lot of these people, that they believe that Congress, they can't do everything, so agencies are necessary. And then you have people like me who say no. Congress delegated powers. It was never supposed to give. It was never supposed to give those powers away. All right. And then you have the administrative state, and that grew beyond constitutional limits. All right. And then I discovered something called plenary powers, and then broad powers, sweeping powers, powers interpreted by courts to justify actions never explicitly listed in the Constitution, and that made me start thinking a lot more. And I started saying to myself, how much power can be delegated before the thing.
There is a argument for small government, but there's also the argument of having a centralized government, and have been able to monitor and been able to what's the word I'm looking for? Recognize what they do, and find either a person or a government body that is answerable for what they do. I mean, at the present moment, we've got the issue of crangos, especially in the UK, where there's a load of unelected people that's been given power by a government, and there's nobody there that is specifically answerable for what they are doing. So the public.
Well, yeah,
and it gets us into. It just makes things more complicated and makes things hard, and the corruption is runs rampant.
Complicated.
Well, I mean, the more you have convoluted stuff out there, the more corruption spreads, and it takes power away from the people. I mean, I'll give you an example. After World War II, we started having. During war times, you have agencies that are made, they're propped up, spy agencies, right? You go, this is wartime stuff. After war is over, the agency is disbanded. Well, that didn't happen after World War II. We got,
a lot of things that get disbanded after World War II.
Yeah, technically, the Cold War. So technically, that was still a war in itself.
Well, they didn't want to lose.
America's always in a war.
Either. There's a lot of money tied up in the defense spending, as they call it. But I want to mention something and kind of build on what Mark was talking about and about what Roger was saying about the constitutionality of these things. It reminds me of Jenga, where you just stack things on top of stuff, because powers, all these agencies, all these delegated powers come about through court decisions. This is the process of the Constitution. The Constitution provides for ways to do these things, and this includes judges interpreting the Constitution to say that the Constitution says you can do these things. I mean, it's kind of reflexive in a way, but so there is a process, and in theory, ultimately, there's someone who is answerable to the voters, which is supposedly the final mechanism of keeping government in check. That's why you had the Senate and the people of Rome. The people in the Senate kept each other in check, and devil take the hindmost. But so these things happen. I don't like the results, and I do think we need to change this if we can. And I'm all for smaller government, if only there is the argument, as Mark was saying, of a larger centralized government. I think some things are better centralized, but I think I'm an individualist. And I don't like the idea of one Caesarism, some guy in Washington, D.C. telling me how to live when he's never met me.
Right.
The weird details of my life. So.
Well, and they're always going to find ways around your constitutional rights. They're always going to find ways. For example, I'll give you the Fourth Amendment. For example, there's not supposed to be any soldiers in your home. The government's not supposed to be in your house monitoring you. Yet we have these cell phones. We have these TVs with the microphones on them. The government's listening.
Well, you got your car.
I'll give you another example. Hold on. I'll give you another example. So, constitutionally, we are not supposed to have a standing federal army. Okay, our country's supposed to have militias.
Yeah,
but we're not supposed to have a standing federal army unless we're at war. So, what does America do? Stay at war constantly.
Yeah,
making it a permanent institution.
That's right. Didn't they sign some kind of war powers thing about that, and they never rescinded it. I forget when it was, probably the 19th century of those guys,
Just on one point that you made, Otto, in relation to judge interpreting laws, a lot of recent legislation, and I'm thinking both EU and UK legislation here specifically, but this also works in US as well, North America. A lot of legislation is so broadly worded that one judge can interpret it completely differently than another judge.
Yeah, I think sometimes you want ambiguity in a law, but there are other times when it needs to be more clear-cut. I think that some of the laws they've written are kind of sloppy, and I'm surprised at that and dismayed, obviously. So, that is a good point, and I think that's the fault of the law, faulty laws. We really should. I remember something, I think it was Arthur C. Clarke suggested, if you had a legislative assembly of any sort, you should require a 3/4 majority to pass any law, because unless 3/4 of the people would support the law, it's not going to be a good law. But only 2/3 majority to repeal a law, because after all, if 2/3 of the people didn't want a law, you better get rid of it. In other words, making it a lot easier to repeal laws than to create them, and that's why I approve of things like removing regulations that are no longer necessary. I mean, heck, we've got laws on the books here. I mentioned before, some states, I don't know if they've been removed yet, but up until recently, laws about when you bring your motor vehicle to a crossing, you're supposed to stop, honk the horn so as not to, so horses know that you're going to be pulling out, and have somebody stand out in the road with a flag, so that horse-drawn traffic won't. Nobody obeys these. Nobody cares about them. But if in some places they're still on the books, in state and local books. It's weird.
The interesting part is we actually went over dead letters last week, and it was like I was really surprised that it didn't pan out like it did, because I even compared the atheist clause to freaking the Jim Crow laws that were taking place and stuff like that, and I really thought we would get more from it, you know what I mean, because it was an interesting topic, and that kind of goes into it, and it kind of opens you up to another thing, because at least I I remembered something from when I started doing this research back in the day that I was able to mention, and I didn't have it in my notes. It was about a young girl who her parents felt that she was too mentally handicapped to freaking actually be able to take care of herself. So they went before a judge before she was over 18, and the judge signed off on them allowing her to be freaking fixed so that she couldn't have children.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That's awful.
And then they didn't even tell her at all through the time.
Oh.
She gets into a relationship and she wants to have a baby, and she finds out she can't do it because the judge allowed her parents to have that done to her, claiming that she was mentally handicapped.
Again, this goes back to my tomorrow's children thing that I've been talking about in the last 2 weeks. The entire not only US, but it was throughout Europe, throughout Western World, in the early parts of the 20th century, first half of the 20th century, like can't think of the word, not euthanasia, eugenics.
Yeah, but here's the thing: they were doing the same thing with young girls, saying that if a young child wanted to have a sex operation, they don't have to worry about going to the parents to talk to them about it or ask them about it. They can just have it done, because it's not their right. That's what the law was. They were trying to pull. The same thing about that law what you were just talking about. Two different ways, but they wanted to wear.
In the UK, actually, it's now legal. I know there is a just within last week. There's been approval of a scientific study on giving children puberty blockers in the UK. It can be done without the parents' consent, and I think in at least Wales, it's now possible to have early teenagers, so under the age of consent, 18.
Bob Dub did want to say something too, so you guys remember that. She just came in.
Okay, let me just finish this one, and I'll Bob Dub again. And for children. So people under the age of 18, I think maybe from the age of 14 up to 18, to actually go in and start medical sex changes with the approval of a psychologist and an educationalist, without the approval of the parents. And in fact, the parents could possibly potentially go to look at a custodial sentence if they disapprove. I think it's actually you need only one parent to actually approve. So if the other one disapproves, then there is more weight to the parents that approves. That makes sense.
Okay, Bob,
Bob Dub.
What are you saying?
I was just going to say that YouTube is full of young girls crying, showing off their chests with their boobs cut off, saying, "They told me I was mentally ill, and then they cut off my breasts and they sterilized me. And that was what they did when I was not coping." There are young girls sobbing their eyes out all over the place in public. At this moment, there are young boys who are saying they cut off my junk. They told me I wasn't okay, and their solution to being not okay is to deform me for life. It's the most horrendous thing. My son went over to Thailand and started getting himself estrogen injections with his two girls. he had a heart attack, like not a heart attack, he had a stroke thing, but instead of the blood clot being in his brain, it was in his optic nerve. He's blind in one eye, and then he got heart failure. He was 36 and he has a pacemaker. Sorry, I just needed to rant at you.
Terrific.
It's
that
not
was good.
going to happen. It has happened. People have mutilated children.
Now, I did pull up that court case. Hold up. I did pull up that court case that I was referring to, and I wanted to mention it. Because I've mentioned it twice, so I might as well get the information out, make it facts. It's a landmark U.S. Supreme case that I was thinking of, and it's Stump versus Sparkman, which was in 1978. And it was widely considered one of the most controversial and significant rulings on the scope of judicial immunity in American history. And the real story behind the case is that the petition was in 1971 when a mother in Indiana, Ora McFarland, filed a secret petition asking a local court to allow her 15-year-old daughter, Linda Spittler, to be sterilized. The mother claimed her daughter was somewhat retarded and staying out late with men. Now, the judge, who was Judge Harold D. Stump, signed and approved the sterilization order the very same day. He did so without holding a hearing, without notifying the young girl, without appointing a lawyer to represent her, and without making a formal record of the case. Now, days later, Linda was taken to the hospital for surgery. Her mother and doctor told her she was merely having an appendix removed. Now, the discovery happened in 1973, 2 years later, when Linda married Leo Sparkman. And after trying unsuccessfully to get pregnant, she went to the doctor and discovered the horrific truth that she had been sterilized. Now, upon learning what had happened, Linda and her husband sued her mother, the doctors, and the hospital, and Judge Stump for violating her constitutional rights to due process. The case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and in 5-3 decisions, the Supreme Court ruled against Linda in the favor of the judge. Now, the Supreme Court held that under the American law, judges have absolute judicial immunity from being sued for damages for their official actions. The court ruled that even though Judge Stump committed grave procedural errors and his actions were highly controversial, he was acting in the official capacity as a judge, so he could not be personally sued.
That's a problem right there. He didn't bother actually find out if it's true or not, what the parents were referring to.
It doesn't matter. He made the decision as a sitting judge in the courtroom. He is immune from being sued at all. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against her.
Yeah, but could he be removed from the bar?
It also opens up if he couldn't be sued.
Sorry, Otto.
I was going to say if he couldn't be sued personally, still one would think that the government could be sued, the hospitals could still be sued, perhaps
the court could be sued.
There's impeachment proceedings. I don't know the details of this, but you can also understand why. I'm not approving of it, but why in such a system you would require judicial immunity. If you sentence somebody wrongfully and it does happen to prison, you didn't actually steal the painting or whatever, you're just gonna, and it also opens you up to constant harassment lawsuits. I'm not saying that judges should or shouldn't be harassed with lawsuits, but I'm just saying from the point of view of if you're running a government, then your judges need to be immune to a certain extent anyway. And in this case, they did point out it was within his official actions. In other words, supposedly, he will be disciplined within the system, within the court, rather than by the court from the outside. I don't know what happened to the guy. Did he go into retirement? Did somebody bushwhack him later because they were pissed at him? Or
Yeah, but there should be a limit to that whole thing. Okay, because why I say that for is look at how many cases that they have, and then they find out later on that what they went through the court of for murder or anything like that. Okay, and then they find out later on that the person they did prosecute and sent to death or life in prison, that they just took an innocent, all of the proof wasn't there, but they still went out and did prosecute, said life in prison, and they didn't bother checking all of the thing.
Well, that's the thing. That's procedural problems, and they were saying, and I think there have been lawsuits about that and successful ones where evidence was suppressed or something like that. But speaking of that, and this was something I did want to bring up before I forget, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about laws still stuck on the books. I was reminded of this working in the favor of somebody. This was in, I believe, 1818. I don't remember the names or anything, but this guy was I believe he was accused of murder. He was acquitted of murder for lack of evidence, not proven. So it was Scotland. And the family or somebody related to the family or some friend sued him civilly for murder. And he responded by demanding trial by combat. He named a day and he showed up in the court in full armor with a sword. The person who was the prosecuting guy refused to fight, and the other guy won his case. And Parliament repealed the law the very next year.
I would love to like that.
It can work for you sometimes, if Only in Scotland, though, I think.
It was totally, count that sword into a corpse these days.
Metal detector and armor. Take off all your armor, sir. Clunk, clunk.
But what I was referring to is
that Bob Dub raised in relation to children and being mortified over sex changes. I'm just reading a report at the moment. Even though the UK government will not state this, but a report that what was it? The Good Law Project, a non-government, a charity organisation in the UK, released, and they found in between 2019 and 2024. Oh, that's in the UK. We've got less than 1% of people that can be considered as trans, but 1% of young people that can be considered as trans, but they reviewed something called the National Child Mortality Database between 2019 and 2025, and it and they found out that 7% of all under 18-year-old deaths was due to be transitioning reasons, all suicides. So all under 18-year-old suicides were related to transitioning issues, because they were told that it was a good idea to try and change sex.
Because they were told. I know, Mark. Because the experts of our culture told children that it was possible to do something that's impossible. Can you think of anything more wicked? These are the top minds of our society, our leaders, our elite, telling children that they can. I mean, you may as well tell a child that he can turn into a monkey or a dolphin.
Tree.
I mean,
yeah.
Well,
I'm
and so
so speechless about it. I just can't believe that intelligent people can have done this.
well, so I don't know if there's some agenda. I don't know. I mean, it's whatever the agenda is. It brings me back. This discussion. I used to listen to Loveline. I don't know if you guys remember that radio show.
Yes.
And Dr. Drew would always tell the callers, usually like some teenager who just had sex and they're scared, they're pregnant, and yada yada yada, and he would tell the child that go to Planned Parenthood, go get the morning after pill, yada yada. Well, my parents. Well, no, you don't need your parents. How old are you? You're 14. You can go to any doctor and get what you need to take care of your situation. It's like, wow, no parents. And I was thinking to myself, back in those days, it's like 20 years ago. It's like, where is this going to go in the future? And now, yeah, I see. When we talk about social engineering, now we got the same people telling kids that, yeah, they can mutilate themselves.
It's a terrible thing, and I've heard leading teachers, the teachers union, searched out these clips, and they say, and I've heard teachers that I know say it, that parents shouldn't have the right to raise their children the way they want. They don't know enough. They don't have degrees. But we teachers, many of them childless, they have the right to mold this next generation because they don't want them to be like their parents, whom they despise. And it seems to me that for all of human history, up until very, very recently, it was seen and understood quite clearly that you are your children just as you are your parents. We exist in time as well as space. We have this biological immortality or something close to it in the fact that our families and our fellow humans proliferate. And part of that is that when you have a child with somebody, when two people have a child, that is them. And it seems to me not only do you give them their physical bodies, but you have the right to raise them the way you want them to be. And maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. I know a lot of kids that go the complete opposite of their parents. Some do, some don't. That's not the point. The point is they're your kids and you're their parents, and you guys have a right to each other and to grow up that way together. And this whole idea to interrupt this, something that's been going on for millions of years, if you want to, go back through, all our stages, it is insane. And like Bob said, how can intelligent people do this? It is a kind of group insanity in my mind. And this kind of touches on, we were talking about cults earlier and how people do stupid, silly things because they're part of a group that gives them, reinforcement and the mythology of the group, and you feel more important and powerful, and it's okay to do these things because, and this is really kind of normal human behavior, because this is also what people who support a certain sports ball team do. They get together, they have their own little in-jokes, or people that play D&D. It's not a bad thing in itself for people to gather. Some people get together late at night and talk to each other on the internet and stream it for like less than a half a dozen. And they have their own in-jokes and their own little language and their own ideas that are very different sometimes from the mainstream. And that's okay. But it can also be this negative thing. It's almost a way that a normal human behavior has been turned into something harmful, something destructive of life. And this is the most destructive thing that you could do to life. Well, that's all I'm going to say. I'm just
you are talking about the concept of cultural Marxism, i.e. the state, the academics, the state in effect, are now your parents, are now your religion, are now everything. You will abide by what the state says. You will think what the state tells you to think. It's very Orwellian.
Yeah, but
Well,
what was, but
and
you know what
not
else?
just. Well, I was going to say just not just Orwellian too, because I was thinking, well, when you're saying that, I'm thinking Ingsoc, right? Ingsoc, I don't know how to pronounce it, but also I'm thinking Mussolini when he said, "All within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing except the state. The state is everything. The individual is nothing." It's this collectivism, you know, where you are subordinate, and even taking your biological imperative away. No, the state will manage that. Decide if you can reproduce or not. There's eugenics for you, right?
Well, I was going to say, eugenics.
Yeah, and it's a state decision, you know. I got into an argument with somebody once about this online about abortion, and they said something like, "Well, I should have complete autonomy over my body." Seems like a simple. I said something like, "It's a very complicated question," and she said, "Well, it seems simple enough to me. I have autonomy over my body." I said, "Yes, and as an individualist." And I support that completely. I think that your right to swing your frying pan, or your coat hanger for that matter, ends where my nose begins. How old does my nose have to be? 1 year old, 1 month old, just before being born, 9 months in the womb, 8 months in the womb? Who decides? Do you decide? Does the doctor decide? Does society decide? Does the priest decide? This is a very complicated question. And then I said, when is a human not a human anymore? When does a murder simply become something else? And this is a very interesting. Now, some people say that a human isn't a human if they're not part of our group. Some people say a human isn't a human if they don't belong to our in-group. This is a very deep and complicated question. When does a person stop being? When can you kill a person? She never replied. She never replied.
It's something that I like to tell people. It just and it throws them off. And it's like, well, it's my body, my choice. It's like, well, from the moment of inception, no, your body does not belong to you. Your body belongs to the baby now. And it throws people off.
There is that.
Yeah, but you know,
I actually like the old until the changes to the UK Abortion Act last year, the 1961 Abortion Act, where it states a fetus is so technically not human. It is up to something. What was it? 24 weeks after. It becomes a fetus doesn't become a human until 24 weeks after the intercourse.
But you guys are talking. Well, there's one, like they say, if it's not breathing, on their own, then they are not alive. If their lungs are enveloped, or they're, if they're, and the thing over this, where when a person goes to the point where they don't have a hesitation of having a lot of them types of abortions, where does it stop? And where when you expect other people to, when it comes to your medical and you wanting a child later on, where does it end before that comes up? And your set of mind as well too in the whole thing.
And to go along with that, and just what I said a few minutes ago, it's not so much as when does life begin, it's when does the life end? Because it's funny how parents say, "Well, my life ended when you were born." Well, yeah, the moment you got pregnant, you stopped being a person. You are now an incubator.
Well, you're part of a family. You're part of a family, though. You've got a whole new reality now, a whole new relationship. You have to change everything. I always knew that, if children ever came along, everything would have to change. All my personal behavior, my activities. Suddenly, you've got to be an example. One life does end, but another one begins. Is the way I think you could look at it.
Exactly, and all the responsibility is on the parent. And not the child. When do we as a society put the responsibility on the child? I mean, when you look at it, that's exactly what we're doing. Isn't it?
And before I forget, something else you brought up about the end of life, because we've gone to the other end, abortion at one end, and now euthanasia. If Chan were here, he could talk about it. But I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Bob?
Sorry, Otto, I muted out and went off the screen. I was just going to say that it's not just about abortion, although abortion is horrific that a woman would choose to kill her own child. But there's another terrible complication in this whole life situation, and that is if somebody is born with, or if somebody is found to have a terrible disease inside the womb, or is born with a terrible womb, is it okay for the doctors to save that person? Because, you know, Carly was, I went into labor when Carly was 7 months old, and she would have aborted, but they pumped me full of steroids, they put me on a drip, they kept her in for another 6 weeks or something, and then let her be born. Her whole life she had problems. She had terrible problems with period cramps. She had backache the whole time. She killed herself when she was 25. Should I have let her die when she was 7 months old and she decided that she didn't want to die? Or should I have made her live for those 25 years and then decide that she didn't want to live? When she'd already decided when she was 7 months old.
Hey, Bob, but the question is...
That's actually an interesting... that's actually quite a... sorry, Robert. I'm going to say that something that I've not let a lot of people know. I was actually born premature. I'm not sure how premature I was, but yeah, I was born early.
I'm so glad you didn't kill yourself.
A functional human now.
Yeah. You see, that's the question, is you can't tell beforehand, Mark. You can't tell beforehand. How do we judge about who's going to make it and who's not going to make it?
Well, it's
who's going to...
Yeah, but wait a minute. But, hey, Bob, but here's the thing. It's in your judge. It's the way you feel and about your emotions. You know, you look at your child, you're looking and thinking, okay, the child has this, but how will this child, even if the child has the problems, if this child is going to be able to handle it through the rest of the year life?
This kind of reminds me, if I may just add to that real quickly, this kind of reminds me of the Spartans. So when people, there was an elder council, right? And the council, these retired soldiers, would actually oversee the childbirths, and they would judge the children, you know, if they were fit for life or not. If they had any kind of imperfection, any kind, they would be thrown off into a pit to die. And so this supposedly bred stronger men, stronger fighters for the war state. So,
but no, it was not just Sparta either.
Survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, I think it was very widespread in a lot of ancient cultures. Eugenics, right? There we are again. But
yeah, no, that's something that I did want to get into too. After you guys are done, I want to break down abortion and Planned Parenthood, because I think, you see, when we get into these conversations, like the other day whenever we had Tan on here, it got very lovey and, you know, spiritual, and, you know, he started talking about his son and being a father and stuff, and we were talking about values and norms and stuff, and don't get me wrong, it was a very good episode, but that's not the way it should have taken place, because people don't understand what it is when you say words like values and norms and things like this. This is a part of the social frickin' engineering, okay? They're wanting to replace God with government. So they create systems that are involving words like your values, what's normal and what's not, and things of that nature. Okay. And so, I mean, like I said, it was a good episode, but that's not the way you should have reacted with the topic that was being discussed, because that's what sociology is doing. It's socially engineering you to believe that these are good things that you should feel real warm inside about, when in reality it's not. They're trying to replace God with government for one thing, and for another thing what they're trying to do is they're trying to socially engineer us to where we think and we're molded the way they want us to be, according to sociology.
Well, that's nothing new. I mean, social engineering has been around since before Plato. I mean, not just Plato, but there's like a half a dozen ancient writers wrote what they called their republic, which was basically the ideal state that everyone must be, forced into living so that they will be happy. And it goes way back. They've gotten really good at it with these studies. So really, it's just kind of a perpetuation of this way to seek to govern people. They considered it a science of government. And, if you were talking earlier about like changing the words, and Mark was talking about, newspeak. And of course, we see this all the time, and it accelerated greatly after the war. When Madison Avenue, a lot of these guys that were in psychological warfare studies in the Army, they went into Mad Ave. And that's where a lot of our advertising comes from, their propaganda research they've done as psychologists. So, it's accelerated a great deal. But one thing is interesting about that whole thing about changing the words. That's based on this idea they call Sapir-Whorf. And the idea is basically that if you change words, then you change the way people think. And if, as Orwell points out, if you remove certain words, if people don't have words to think about something, then they can't think about it. And it does have some effect, but I think they found it in practice. People simply tend to redefine the words. It doesn't really work as well as they think it does. But I think that's why there's this cult-like religious horror of expressing certain ideas in certain circles. You can't say that, or you don't do that. And I remember when this was a thing back in the 1980s, and they called it white liberal guilt, and we laughed at it. And then later, this became basically the social law of the land. And we crumbled at it. But now we're laughing at it again, I think, which is a good cycle, good stage in the cycle to be in.
Well, hold on. I want to get back to Bob Dub, because I cut her off. So, survival of the fittest, is that something that you would take into account with your question? Because I can tell you personally, I mean, I inherited rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes. I inherited a lot of things from my mother, and I'm in chronic pain every single day. I don't sleep well because of pain. If I were given a choice to go back in time to tell my mom whether to have me or not, I would probably tell her, you know what, I'll skip this time. I'll catch the next ride. That's my honest feeling about it. So I don't know if that helps you out or not, or I don't know.
I'm sorry. That's so hard to have to live with those things, and I think that's one of these huge, terrible moral questions that we have to answer as a society, and why it's so sad that we have this division between the two sides. Because, what if we did have the technology? I mean, I don't have an answer. I'm glad that I had Carly for 25 years. I loved her. I still love her. I'm glad everything. I don't regret her, but I do regret the pain she was in. I do regret the hard circumstances. And I don't know that we have answers, but I do think that now that we have come to this place where we're all so well educated, and we have this extraordinary technology that we can find each other and get together and have these conversations. I think that the more of us that are out there having these decentralized conversations, the more likely it is that we will get in touch with God, with goodness, with basic human decency and the higher angels of our nature and things. And I feel that one of the things that I've had has been a lot of pressure to not speak about Carly and to not have a pity party and not to bring my depression and put it on other people and not make other people upset with my issues. And I shut up for a long time and thought that I mustn't speak. And then I realized that it's not just me. It's hundreds of us caught in this moment in society where we're in disarray, basically, and we don't really know the way forward. So I have to say that I'm very grateful to you guys for letting me come here and have these conversations with you. Very grateful.
It's an honor. It's an honor. And, I think, to throw my own 2 cents in, Bob, I think you made the only decision you could make. What other decision could you make, knowing you as, the person you are? You made the right decision, and the only decision you could make at that time, I think.
As a mother,
Thanks.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. But if only we knew. If only we had a crystal ball.
I don't want to know. I don't want
Yeah. And I do know that if I knew that she was going to kill herself, I would not have accepted the treatment from the doctors. But I hoped for sunny days. I hoped for a good outcome. And I'm one of the unlucky ones that didn't get it. But there are hundreds and thousands of moms who get a lucky outcome. So I'm not saying that because of my experience it shouldn't happen. I'm just saying life is hard. Life is very hard.
Think of it like this. What happened with you, Bob, it could have went a whole different other way, even worse. Like on some families had even worse than that could have happened.
Oh yes. I do know that, Robert. I know that I'm very, very blessed and very, very lucky and very, very privileged. I'm aware of that.
Now, one thing I do want to point out too, this actually intersects between voluntary eugenics and the history of Planned Parenthood. Now, do you guys know the difference between voluntary eugenics and involuntary eugenics?
No, I don't.
One you choose and one somebody else decides for you.
Now, involuntary eugenics involves the state using force to prevent certain people from reproducing. Okay. Now, voluntary eugenics is the philosophy that argues that changes to the population should happen through education and personal choice, not government force. Now, this is still, all of it is sociology. Okay, this is a part of eugenics. It's the proponents believe that if individuals, especially those living in poverty or with severe hereditary illnesses, were given the knowledge and tools to plan their families, they would voluntarily choose to have fewer children, thereby reducing human suffering and social burdens. Now, Planned Parenthood came out of this idea, and there's a woman by the name of Margaret Sanger who was the person who gave birth to the birth control movement, which later became Planned Parenthood. And she...
in the U.S.
She told it...
It's a U.S. or is it...
This all has to do with abortion. It doesn't matter where you live when it comes. She was the first one. Margaret Sanger was the first one to come up with this. Okay, and she shared language with people who believed in the eugenics thing. She frequently used the terminology of the eugenics movement and saying that birth control would lead to the creation of a superpower and prevent the reproduction of those she deemed as unfit. And that was a term that was always used by eugenicists. And it's weird that we're having this conversation now because, like, this last week I had done a reading with Bob Dub where we were talking about freaking highbrow, lowbrow, and medium brow. And by the time I was done, she asked me what I thought of it, and I said, I am absolutely disgusted with being a man right now. You know what I mean? Because it was just it's hard for me to fathom that people actually thought like that back then. You know what I mean? That people really, and it's clearly eugenics. It's people freaking touching their heads to see how freaking intelligent they are, or where the freaking
Phrenology.
Yeah, but you see, society has changed, hasn't it? We've changed these ideas, and I wonder how that happened. You know, new thoughts, new words.
How many lumps you got in your head, Roger?
We laugh at phrenology now. It used to be, I'm a phrenologist. Marry him, darling. He's a phrenologist, for God's sake. He's a phrenologist. He's a millionaire. You know?
Yeah, but they had that one that shaped like a human skull, where they had a lot of writing on it, and they would do. They said that they could tell by the size of your head compared to what's on there if you're intelligent, what your intelligence are.
Oh yeah,
Back
also
in the
70s. All your personality was there. You get to read your whole personality.
Yeah, but I can't think of when it came from, what century, and who's
It's
the
a
one that created it.
Darwin, and that was actually promoted by the early Nazi part, NDSW, the Nazi part of Germany, National Socialist German Workers' Party, back in the early 30s or early to mid 30s.
If my memory serves me well, didn't he marry his cousin and have a bunch of retarded kids?
Hitler?
No. Darwin.
Oh, Darwin. I don't think he did. Actually, he came from a very well-to-do family. Most of the people who were in his family were considered geniuses. That's the crazy part about it.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think it's ironic that happened. I think this might have the right guy. Maybe I'm thinking somebody else, but I think he married his cousin and had a bunch of retarded kids. So, somebody fact check me.
I'm gonna see if there's water babies in Darwin's family. Let's just do that.
I've heard that a long time.
I've always said that we actually do have eugenics. We always have in the shape of all societies do have rules about marriage. You marry certain people from certain clans or only on certain days. They didn't really understand or have the same model of reproduction that we do, and it's a mysterious thing. You know, two people get together, they have a baby. It's different, but it kind of looks good.
Someone's flipping out.
Say,
Otto turned robotic.
Otto.
Okay, we can't hear you.
You're phasing out real quick.
Okay.
Mr. Roboto.
Arigato.
Hold on a minute.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
No.
Well,
and I did do a fact check, except for V, but I didn't ask if they had water babies. But Charles Darwin did marry his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. And they were married on June 29th, 1839. Emma was the daughter of Josiah Wedgwood II, who was the brother of Darwin's mother, Susanna Wedgwood. And they were married for 43 years and had 10 children together, though 3 tragically died at young ages.
I wonder if
there
they
was
were
something wrong with them. Yeah.
I wonder if they were the China family, the Wedgwood China.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like China, they were big in that. What do you call that one about plant family? Because they would have set up to where they neuter certain like bodyguards and certain people.
Eunuchs. Yeah, eunuchs. that's an old thing too. They did that in the classical world.
Yeah, that's
Actually, it
the
was
old.
done up to the Middle Ages. The Pope had strato singers in his choir. Actually, they still had castratos even after that had been made illegal in all of Europe. I think he imported them from Turkey or something. So I think that finally ended in the 17th century or 18th century. I forget now. You know, keeping traditions alive in the church, I guess.
Well,
I
it was
just
during.
thinking, sorry, Barbara. I was just thinking, your description of Darwin, Roger, he was quite old when he had children. He would have been 30.
Mm-hmm.
Comparably at that age, that's relatively old.
Well, from what I'm reading here too, it says that ironically, as Darwin developed his theories on evolution and natural selection, he became deeply worried about his own marriage. Through his research on plants and animals, he realized that inbreeding weakens a lineage and passes on harmful hereditary traits. Now, because his own children suffered from frequent illnesses, Darwin severely worried that marrying his first cousin had genetically compromised his children's health. He even launched a scientific study into the health effects of cousin marriages across Great Britain to see if his fears were statistically proven. So,
Actually, interestingly, in the UK at the moment, there's the entire because of the immigration issues that we have, and especially from Asia, Southern Asia, there's the entire question of first marriage or first cousin marriages that's been raised relatively recently, or now, in fact. But yeah, just a side note.
First cousin marriages are traditional in some cultures.
Yeah.
But actually, sibling marriage was only banned in the Roman imperial period, but that was only in Egypt. I think it was Diocletian, so that would have been late. But you know what? I do have to take my leave again. I remember listening to you guys earlier about how important getting sleep is, and I have to wake up for work in 7 hours. I'm giving myself a good night's sleep tonight. I am very grateful to be here, though. Thank you.
You know you wanted to be here. You were sitting there and you heard the conversation, and you're like, "Man, I gotta go in on that one."
I gotta go in on that one. You're right. I just had to throw my 2 cents in.
So
there's great big bronze pennies I throw in too.
We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're here, and
I'm very glad to be here.
With Bob Dub, I just wanted to say, the thing of it is, it's like when I think of that, I relate to like me and my brother. Okay, now my brother had problems when he was a little baby. Okay, and my mom almost lost my little sister in childbirth. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you right now, as a brother, I am just happy as hell as being my brother's freaking brother, because like he's the one, like we get into the gardening and everything, right? When we were growing up, that's what my mom did with my brother first. He was the first one to get all of us kids into gardening. You know what I mean? So those are memories that I have that I would have never had if freaking they would have taken that idea of trying to abort him or anything, because of things that happened with him, you know what I mean, or stuff like that. And then my sister was a miracle baby. Like they didn't think that she would be born, and now here she is. You know what I mean? So that right there is something. Now we have my little sister, who is a pain in the butt. Pretty crazy. I would have had her if it wasn't for my mom deciding to keep her.
Well, I haven't met your sister, but I'm very glad Robert is here with us today.
Indeed.
Me too.
Thank you.
This is the thing, is that the beauty of human life doesn't depend on anything. It is beautiful, whatever vessel it's contained in. Human life is miraculous.
Yeah, but it's what you do with the human life, how it represents to other people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true.
And sometimes the beautifulest things in the world are the things that drive you crazy.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Trauma is a part of life.
Exactly. See, I think we were talking about that early. Drama.
Yeah, it's the worst drama, the one we never get over. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Now-
the thing about teachers, you go and when they made that statement, how is it that it's all right to do that, to tie a child down in a chair with tape in study hall? I mean,
Well,
when they're
we can bring
It's
that.
not right.
yeah, but
We can bring that up later. That was code from Otto saying that he needs to go to bed. So I do want to end this show right now because it is actually at the best point where it's good. And the reason why I brought that last part up was because this is the 6th episode for this year of Roger's Real-Time Talk Show event. We got 6 more to go, and we are freaking halfway through it. And so far, I think we've had some really good conversations. There were things that were left out that I wanted to bring into the conversation. And the abortion issue was something that's been brought up quite a few times. And I think that that's one direction that we do need to go into when it comes to sociology and social engineering.
Did you say 66?
Well, I almost did, but
66th episode?
no, this is the 6th episode for
Oh,
the
six.
year. So
I was gonna
Don't
say,
get excited.
wow.
Don't get excited. This isn't a heavy metal show. Come on.
I was going to say Order 66.
no, this is something that I started doing back when I first got into this whole streaming thing and recording videos. This is like something I've been doing for the last 12 years, 13 years. I've been researching this, and it's going to get a lot more in depth because we're going to start talking about natural law. Everybody loves natural law. They think it's so great. Well, let's see how great it really is. Let's talk about Kant, and let's talk about Hume's, and let's talk about natural law and what that's really about, especially when it comes to God and replacing God with government.
yeah, but
The
what do they
Locke and
consider
Smith
natural
argument.
law? What does people consider natural law?
Well, let's cover that later. So, with that being said, let's ask everybody for their socials so that we can see if anybody wants to contact them. Starting with Bob Dub. Bob Dub, how can people find you?
I am on minds.com as Bob Dub. I'm also on X as Bob Dub _on_minds. My favorite place to be is Swarm Space. .lovable.app, and you can find some of my videos on YouTube under Bob Dub or Sloppy Joe or under the latest one, DWMW. Thank you very much, Roger.
All right. Now, Otto, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can check out my website, navakavada.org. That's NAVAKAVADA. It's spelled just like it sounds. I'm also on Minds.com. There's Otto_X. That's EX. I am also in the Swarm Space sometimes these days. Swarmspace.lovable.app. I think I got that right. And, of course, you can also find me occasionally where you find Roger at Roger's Hangout. And I'm also available by messenger pigeon, or you might run into me down at the store.
Okay. Now, how about you, Mr. Edworthy? How can people get in touch with you?
Really, just one site. Minds.com, username Edworthy.
Okay. So, B is coming off of move that he's been taking, so he doesn't have any kind of social networks to contact him at. So if you
Unless you guys want to dead drop me some money,
Right.
we can make a game out of it.
if you want to contact him or my brother Robert, you can contact him through me at Roger_Hanson on minds.com. You can also find me on X, Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. I also have Roger's Hangout, like Otto said, on Teams and on Elements Matrix. You can find me there. We have a Minds group on Minds as well called the Praetorian. If you guys want to go in and be a part of the community, actually come on the show with us and have cool conversations like this, you are more than welcome to join us there, or hit me up in the Rogers Hangouts on Elements Matrix or on Teams, and I can set it up to where you guys can have the links. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw tonight, please like, subscribe, share, make comments in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, whatever. Just say hello. We just want to talk to you. Unless you're a bot or unless you're, somebody who is on there trolling us. So other than that, leave a comment down in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you again next week. Bye.